Welcome to a video series specially made for, by, and with Beautiful Trouble and activists from Myanmar working for justice, equity, and social change. Beautiful Trouble is all about people-powered creative tools for a more just world. We distill the lessons learned by our comrades from around the globe to make them easily accessible for others so that we can all make revolution irresistible. Our books, study guide, toolbox, and strategy card deck, along with our global network of trainers, artists, organizers, and activistas, all support more effective and innovative action. This is part 5 of our series, and we'll be talking about the SWOT methodology. Other videos covered creative actions, action planning, and other strategy tools. We'll start off with a review. This session is about a strategic planning tool because, as we've mentioned before, although we often start with tactics because they are cool, sexy, compelling, and seemingly unlimited, just starting there could lead us in the wrong direction. In order to be more effective, to use our limited resources in the best way possible, we need to start by being clear about our big vision. Then we identify our mission or our purpose for what we would like to do. And then we are clear about which piece of that issue we're going to work on, and that's called a campaign. And a campaign has specific goals or steps for taking action. So let's talk about planning a campaign. If you need a way to assess your situation and your capacity to address it, the SWOT matrix can help you and your organization identify key factors in play. By carefully considering both your internal strengths and weaknesses alongside the external threats and opportunities, you can identify your best case scenario, a missed opportunity possibly, a mobilization scenario, and of course, the worst case option that you want to avoid at all cost. Most groups benefit tremendously from a process of gathering information about their situation, which is also called assessment, and then using this information towards the development of clear, achievable, and strategic campaign plans. And the SWOT methodologies is the thing that helps to cross-reference those internal and external factors in order to identify potential campaign scenarios. So here's an example of use of SWOT. Let's say you're a small group and you're running an anti-corruption campaign. The SWOT analysis could help you figure out that an internal strength that you have is that you have a large core of committed volunteers. Like you would be listing large group of committed volunteers under the strength, in the strength box. You might also have listed that you have an external opportunity that you've noticed. There's a huge corruption scandal that has just broken out in your community, and you're running an anti-corruption campaign. So potentially that is a best case scenario of being able to field a large team of volunteers to deliver information or materials to people who are now newly paying attention to this corruption scandal, right? And that might mean that you then realize we just need to develop some materials and fundraise to print them. On the other hand, if you've noticed that one of your internal weaknesses is that you have a minimal staff, you have very few staff and very few trained volunteers, when this major corruption scandal breaks, it's an opportunity for you that you can't meet. So that would be a missed opportunity scenario, meaning that you might need to develop alternative ways to meet your goals. Or by identifying this missed opportunity, you might realize that you should shift your resources or your priorities to mobilize and educate this team of volunteers that you have. These are just a few examples of the sort of insights that a SWOT analysis can provide. When you fully complete the matrix, when you complete the 4 external boxes, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats, and you look at how those things interrelate, other insights could lead you to different strategic conclusions. You may notice, actually, while you're doing this work, that depending on the situation, an organization's strengths could also be similar to an organization's weakness. For example, many volunteers can be a strength if you need them, but a weakness could be if they need expensive training that you can't provide. In the same way, a breaking scandal, like we just talked about, there's a breaking corruption scandal and you're an anti-corruption group, so in theory you should be able to use it. It can, as an opportunity, it's a chance for you to expand your campaign, but it could also be a threat because your target might suddenly see you as a greater risk and lash out against you in new ways. So it's really important we don't argue about where to put the strengths and weaknesses when you fill it out. Put them in both boxes. So recommend now, if you have time to press pause and work through a SWOT or begin to work through a SWOT for your own campaign, go ahead and do that. First, focus on the easy part, which is often listing the internal strengths and weaknesses of your group, because you'll know that really well, and the external opportunities and threats. Just like with other tools that you use, the more specific you are, the more powerful the tool will become for you. Also, we recommend that you don't spend too much time on figuring out scenarios for the worst case unless you can change those worst case scenarios into mobilization opportunities or best case scenarios. We want to do whatever we can to stay out of the WC, the worst case scenario box. Go ahead and pause the video if you have time to think about your campaign and work with the SWOT analysis. Welcome back from working with the SWOT analysis. Once you have figured out your best case scenario, your mobilization opportunities, your missed opportunities, and your worst case scenarios, you can make statements that could then become part of your campaign plan or your campaign plan if you can make those statements smart. And what we mean by smart is to make them specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You can find this as a card in our toolbox of strategy cards. You can also find it online, as you can see. So let's talk about SMART and taking the statements from the SWOT exercise and turning them into campaigns. Strong campaigns are built on a series of short and midterm objectives that can function as intermediary steps towards a more ambitious campaign goal. So here's an example of the use of SMART. If we use the example from earlier, an anti-corruption campaign, where your SWOT analysis reveals that an internal strength that you have, which could be a large core of committed volunteers, overlaps with an external opportunity, a huge corruption scandal that is just broken, you would potentially have the best case scenario of being able to field a large outreach team. So a SMART campaign statement or goal could be prep and mobilize 2 teams of 10 people to do outreach or leafleting at least 25 community events, local sports games, and religious services in the next month so that we can double our list of supporters for future events. That's SMART because it has target numbers, it has a date, and it has the objective of growing contact lists, and it's somewhat realistic, right? Building 2 teams is totally possible for your small group. Up to 10 people is also possibly likely, and attending 25 events is possible. It might be a stretch, but at least what happens when you come back in a month, you can assess whether or not you were able to meet your SMART goals, and this will give you information for the future. Were you too modest in setting your goals, or were you too ambitious? And so when you come back and you do an assessment, you'll be able to know whether you need to change your plans for the future in one way or the other. And this will help you be more effective campaigners. So if you have time and you've figured out some of the best case or worst case scenarios from previously using the SWOT tool, why don't you pause right now and see if you can turn at least one of your scenarios into campaign goals stated with the SMART framework. Make sure it has some specific numbers, that it has a date attached to it when you expect to either check in or achieve it by, and it's realistic given your own group's strengths and weaknesses. I hope you had a chance to turn one of your scenarios into a campaign framework that was SMART, that was specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. If you'd like more information about these methodologies of SWOT and SMART, or other ones that can help you with your strategic planning, please see the Beautiful Action Trainers modules, or BATMO, especially modules 4 and 5, or also feel free to visit the other work in the Beautiful Trouble universe. Thanks for watching. We hope this video will help you inspire and facilitate the change you want to see in the world. This was part 5 of the series and part 2 of the strategic planning tools. For more resources and to connect with fellow activists and share your stories, visit our web pages and get in touch with the team at Beautiful Trouble.